Hello everyone, welcome to this week's GT Sport Daily Race C Strategy Guide, where we are taking Super Formula cars round the Red Bull Ring in the Styrian region of Austria. So let's move on, we'll take a closer look at the settings and see what we're going to be facing this week. So Super Formula cars round the Red Bull Ring, we've got 15 laps to get round, fuel consumption at times 3, tyre wear fairly high at times 10, we've got a grid start with a false start check, and we have both the racing medium and the racing hard tyres available, and like most weeks we will assume those racing hard tyres are going to be mandatory. So moving on to take a look at a little bit of a closer look at the circuit. We're back to the bird's eye view as we did in Spa last week. Coming through the first two turns there, heading down to Slosh Gold, which is turn number 4 on the circuit, but turn number 3 in what technically feels like turn number 3. And into the second last turn, the Jochen curve named after Pompous world champion in Formula 1, and that was a bird's eye view of the Red Bull Ring. So let's move on to take a look at the pit loss and the fuel before we move on to the strategy. So fuel is at times 3. You can see here we are pretty much into 2/3 of the way through a race run. 10 laps down, 5 laps remaining. We've got 6.7 laps worth of fuel, so fuel is going to be no issue, and that's even with using the boost. Coming into the pit lane, we're selecting the hard tyres here. We'll get an idea of the pit lane loss when making a pit stop, because it's pretty much almost assured that you're going to be making a pit stop because of the two different compounds of tyres. So the pit loss coming in at 6.9 seconds. I've tested that quite a few times. I do apologise for the strategy guide last week where I didn't really test the pit loss properly. Said it was 8 to 9 seconds, it turned out it was only about 6.5 seconds. The one little tip that I will give you on this one is when exiting the pit lane, cars coming out of turn 1 are going to have a little bit more momentum than you, so it'd be probably a good idea to use some boost as you exit the pit lane if you're in a sort of fight towards turn number 2. Just something I think would be maybe sort of help you to protect that position a little bit. So on to the strategies now. Of course we've got the grid start with the false start check. I would recommend using traction control at 1 to launch the car off the line, just to sort of minimise that wheel spin. If you can sort of work out how the AI cars get the car off the line, you will be in good shape. They absolutely rocket off the line. I don't know why they didn't really do a very good job this time, but they seem to be able to get the car off the line quicker with hard tyres than I can with medium tyres, so I'm not entirely sure what their secret is. But if you could work it out, you'd be in good shape at the starts, that is for sure. So the first strategy we will look at here is the one stop, starting on the medium tyres and then moving on to the hard tyres later on in the race. Tyre weight at times 10 does seem pretty high, but on a high downforce car like the Super Formula cars, they sort of tend to look after the tyres a little bit better, but just because they're not sliding about quite as much. So we'll jump forward here to lap number 10, and this is where I sort of felt that the medium tyres were starting to sort of give up a little bit, and I was going to sort of dive into the pits here and get an idea as to what sort of pace I can get out the hard tyres, and hopefully sort of be able to at the very least match my sort of medium tyre times that I'm doing on sort of laps 7, 8 and 9, and hopefully go a little bit quicker. So you can see the medium tyres do hold up pretty well though through the first stint here. Courtesy of the fuel burning down quite a lot as well, so a pretty good balance between the sort of tyre wear kicking in and the fuel burning off means you can keep those lap times pretty steady. So into the pit lane we come, we'll get a new set of tyres on. I think the sort of mechanic there on the left rear needs replaced because he seems to be very slow at getting those tyres changed, but that's just something that I noted when looking at the pit stops and making this guide. But we've got the hard tyres bolted on. Let's see if we've timed that pit stop just correct and we can start matching our Warren medium lap times. So jumping forward here to lap number 15, the last lap of the race, and it looks like to me we have kind of sort of timed that pit stop pretty much spot on, pitting at the end of lap number 10. So our first flying lap on the hard tyres, lap 12 and 13 there, very comparable to the lap times we're doing with the medium tyres towards the end of the race on laps 8 and, the end of the stint on lap 8 and 9, and then we've actually set our fastest lap of the race on lap 14 with the hard tyres and the low fuel. So it looks to me around about lap 10 is around about where you want to be making that stop when starting on the mediums, but we'll sort of discuss the one stop strategy a little bit later in the video and sort of see if maybe that window is a little bit bigger. But that is the finishing time there for the one-stop strategy, was 19 minutes 05.7, and that will be the benchmark as we move on to the next strategy. So the next one we're going to look at here is the no stop on the hard tyres. Of course, this is only going to be possible if it is just the hard tyre that is mandatory and not the medium and the hard tyre like it was last week in the Group 2 race. Now this run was going pretty well, I was quite happy with it was going, and then we had this little bit of an instant coming out of turn number 2 in the hairpin. Just getting on the throttle just a little bit too eagerly, spun up the back tyres, obviously starting to get a little bit worn towards this part of the race. We are now on lap 13, and that was to cost us overall around about 3.9 seconds. We will take that into account when we sort of look at the finishing time. So the tyres do hold up pretty nicely on the no stop run. If this strategy is an option, fastest lap of the race there set on lap 14. Of course, we've sort of burned off about 70% of the fuel at that point, so we're about 70 kilograms lighter on a car that only weighs 660 kilograms to start with, so that's why we're able to keep going faster and faster even though the tyres are wearing. Finishing time there 19 minutes 12.3, but if we take away that instant, that comes in at 19 minutes 08.4, so about 3 seconds slower than the one stop. I was quite surprised that the gap was as large as that, to be honest with you. I thought it was going to be a lot closer when I was doing the driving, but it does look like the one stop is the superior strategy to the no stop on this one. I didn't really think this strategy that we're now going to look at was going to be the way to go. We're going to try a two stopper, doing 7 laps on the mediums, then another 7 lap stint on the mediums, and just a single lap on the hard tyres. So we've already made our first pit stop here at the end of lap 7. Obviously on this strategy you can push the tyres a lot harder than you would on the one stop. And we see the benefit of the fresh set of medium tyres there as we immediately set the fastest lap on our first flying lap on the new set of tyres. So yeah, you can be a little bit more aggressive on the car with this strategy, sort of a bit more aggressive with the downshifting, sort of putting the throttle down a little bit more vigorously if you like, coming out of some of the tighter corners. Moving here towards the end of the race, halfway through lap 15, you can see the lap times there on the second stint, sort of getting into the 14s a couple of times. We actually did an absolute belter of a lap on lap 12 there, I won 14.5, a bit of an outlier, we didn't really get that close to that in any of the other laps. It just seemed to be a lap that I just got absolutely spot on, which is always very nice to do. So that was the capability of the car on the sort of fresh set of mediums. It could go, you know, that kind of pace. If you could maintain that pace, I think this strategy might be a little bit more viable, but of course you're going to have that additional pit stop to make, and with that comes ending up in traffic. So over the line we come here to finish the two stop strategy, 1 lap on the hard tyres at the end there, and I did think the sort of finishing time here would be a little bit closer to the one stop, but we're coming in at 19 minutes 09.8, which is a little over 4 seconds slower, so that did actually surprise me quite a lot. I thought it'd be a little bit closer than that. So let's move on to taking a little bit of a review of the various strategies. Lots of information up there on the screen for you to peruse and compare. Kind of handy, I suppose, for some of you out there who have a little bit of trouble with the Scottish accent. So first up was the one-stop strategy, starting on the mediums for 10 laps, finishing on the hards for 5 laps. This was the quickest of the 3 strategies that we tested by around about 3 seconds. The medium tyres lasted to around about 10 laps, so the crossover window with the hard tyres is probably more like laps 7 to 12, which means there is the sort of scope for pitting a little bit earlier or a little bit later than that point, and maybe going for either an undercut or an overcut. Strategy number 2 that we looked at was the no stop. I've always got to add in that this is only going to be possible depending on the tyre stipulation, so if it's only the hard tyres that are mandatory, this stop is viable. If, like last week with the Group 2 race, it is both the hard tyre and the medium that are both mandatory, then this will not be possible, of course. This strategy was around about 3 seconds slower than the one stop and a sort of little bit quicker than the two stop. Just got to be careful with the tyres towards the end of the race. You can see we had a little bit of a moment out of the hairpin, obviously doing 15 laps on the hard tyres, which are the lowest grip tyres anyway. Could be a little bit of a struggle. And lastly was the two stop strategy. Obviously you're spending a lot more time on the quicker tyre in this one, but you have got that extra stop to make. The delta between the tyres is just not big enough to make that extra stop worthwhile. This actually comes in as the slow strategy, and you're also going to have that possibility of traffic to deal with as well. So I'm probably going to rule out the 2-stop as being the way to do this one. It's very much looking like it's going to be a 1-stop strategy is the best way to go about this race, and possibly trying to maybe work the no-stop strategy, maybe from the rear of the grid. Let's go on to doing a lap guide then. In the Super Formula car, we're in the Toyota variation and we are approaching turn number 1 as we start this lap. Turn number 1, braking at the 100-metre board. You can either take this corner in 2nd or 3rd gear. 2nd gear if you're looking for the maximum push out the corner, 3rd gear if you're maybe trying to look after the tyres a little bit. Down the sort of longest straight on the circuit, it's going to be the best opportunity for overtaking into the hairpin. You're looking for just before the 100-metre board for the braking. I don't go down to 1st gear, I know some people do. I just keep it in 2nd gear, just to minimise that wheel spin and give me the sort of less chance of spinning out, a bit like we've seen in the no-stop strategy. Down towards Slosh Gold, it's the 100-metre board that is your reference for this one as well. Down into 2nd gear, try to keep it nice and tight, get on the power as early as possible, try not to drift too wide. And coming in to, I can't remember the name of the curve, but 50-metre board is your friend. You can either use 3rd or 4th gear for this one. Again, 4th gear if you're looking to save the tyres. 4th gear for this corner here, just flinging it in, getting the car nice and poised and balanced on the throttle as early as possible. Down towards the last 2 remaining corners, got to be very careful of the track limits here. 50-metre board from 6th gear down into 4th, don't drift too wide, and braking at the end of the Austrian flag that's painted on the left hand side. That certainly is your reference. Down into 3rd gear for the last corner, and over the line we come for a lap of the Red Bull Ring in the Super Formula car with the brake balance at +1. So I think we've got a fairly good racing prospect here. Hopefully PD do the right thing by only making the hard tyres mandatory to open up the strategy a little bit. Obviously that grid start with the sort of very sensitive penalty system is going to create quite a lot of carnage into turn number 1 and turn number 2 of course. I could see some DR resets coming just through the sensitivity of the penalty system, so do your best to avoid that, although it's not always easy. But other than that, I think it should be good fun. Slipstream is going to play a massive factor on the run down to turn number 2 as well, and pretty much that's all I've got to say on this one. Please hit that like button, please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Really helps the channel out, lets us grow slowly but surely. And until the next video, thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you on the next one. Goodbye now.